Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a Second Opinion Sports Medicine podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Glass, and we have a special guest today, Kori Angers. Is that correct? And you drove up from Encinitas.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier. Dustin, why don't you introduce her and tell us a little bit about our guest today?
Yeah, so I'm very excited to see Kori. We've been friends. I was looking back since 2005 is when I moved into the facility, and I think you started. I don't know when you started. So anyways, I moved into a facility, a 14,000 square foot training facility in Orange County. It was my second location. My practice was called Competitive Edge.
I remember that, yeah.
And his facility, Todd Norman's facility, was called Cutting Edge.
Okay.
So he was a big strength and conditioning coach, and I remember calling him up one day and just saying, hey, you know, I'm Competitive Edge, you're Cutting Edge, maybe we can work something out. I wanted to go from my traditional office into a sports facility.
Yeah, have both there, like
yep.
a multidisciplinary.
Yeah, so he said, well, let me send you a couple of people first, and if you're worth anything, then we can maybe talk. Well, after a couple of his clients came through, he called me up and said, well, I have a room for rent. You want to rent space? So I rented space, and it was a pretty cool facility. They had turf in one area, one 7,000 square spot, and then a bunch of lifting platforms and all the weights on another 7,000. And then on my side,
That's a big space.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was beautiful.
Huge.
Yeah.
Back then, there was only. Well, I'll let Kori tell more about it, but my side, there was a couple little offices and then a bigger office. And then, so I had a little office for my reception or my CA, and then I had a treating room. My waiting room was actually the stretch area for the trainers to come and stretch there.
Nice. So it sounds like it was like kind of open area.
Yeah, it was an open area. So.
And were you there already before when he came in, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I got there like a couple months before.
Yeah, because you started right around the same time. So we were kind of both newbies in the whole facility, and we were the new faces.
And that was an established facility, I guess?
Yeah, because
Ish.
Todd was a strength coach for the NM Ducks back in the day. So he had a lot of like pro athletes that would follow him.
I see.
And then from there, he had like, you know, collegiate and a lot of the high school teams. So he got on board like some of the best strength coaches around. He like got some guy from China and from like Georgia, and like he like pulled all these really good strength coaches in, and then me, and I'm like, hey.
Oh, that sounds amazing to be like so collaborative.
It was a really cool facility.
Cool.
So why don't you kind of tell us about that whole? Well, let's take a step back and walk up to where we met. Okay, I want to take a step back.
Okay.
So we'll go through the history of who are you, where are you from, all that kind of thing. So so where did you grow up? Because you got a pretty extensive family.
Yes.
And I kind of want. I think that's part of your story, you know, that's kind of what we talk about. We like to get to know our guests from what made you who you are today, and I like to kind of work from the beginnings up. And I think you'll like your story.
Yes. Well, I actually passed toilet training, so I was okay with that. I don't really have any toilet training. But so grew up in upstate New York. I'm the youngest of 11 kids.
Okay.
Same mom and dad.
Yeah. My parents are both from like 6 and 7, so like a lot of uncles and aunts. So where do you fall in the 11?
I'm the youngest.
Youngest, you said.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So 6 boys, 5 girls. We grew up in a 300-acre like horse ranch.
That's beautiful.
And my dad was an attorney, and he would fly all over the country and work. So he like kind of wanted, I think, tuck his kids where we couldn't get like hit by a car and too much trouble. Like found some space out in the country. So you kids stay here. I'll be back. But of course, we got into a bunch of trouble, like hiking, fishing. Any sport my brothers and sister played, I would jump in and play it. Because I was like, me too.
For sure.
Yeah. So football and like once my brother said, hey, like you can play with us, like they would like just pile grab you, like throw you the ball and just tackle you as hard as they could. Like, but that was great fun because I got to play.
You were included.
Yeah. So I grew up doing like kind of chasing all their sports. Like my dad was a big runner, so I'd go running with him all the time. So I got caught up in all these sports. I was loved horses, so I ended up like riding and training horses eventually.
You guys had horses there on the property?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had like a lot of quarter horses and jumping horses, and my brother was like a true cowboy, like horse whisperer.
Wow.
So he would like do all the breeding and like raise babies, and like the horse would like get spring, like whatever you want. And the like funny part is like I would get on these horses, so he would like break a baby, and baby horses are wild, like you don't know what's gonna happen. So you get on it, and like the horse wouldn't even like flick in the air, and he's like, "It's fine. Oh, your turn."
And what age was this?
Oh, like anywhere from like
Do you remember the first time? 8 years old, huh?
Well, first time I rode a horse, I was like 11 months old.
Wow. Just with somebody, obviously. Like,
yeah, my brother like stuck me in front of him. He's
Sure.
like, this will be fun.
So were you comfortable at such a young age? Like you weren't intimidated? Like you're a young kid, you're comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would just do whatever it took to be like at the barn and on a horse. Like I'd sneak up there sometimes after school and like bring one out of its stall and like try to climb on it. And it was like, so like then, and then my brother I'll do it again. But again, just to be included and like part of it. Like you
Sure.
never acted hurt. Like even if you were hurt, you're like, you hurt? Nope, I'm good.
Well, I think
Totally fine.
growing up outdoors like that, there's a lot of, activities and spur of the moment things. And I think to grow up around huge animals like horses is pretty amazing. That's not an experience most people have,
No, especially
Yeah.
out here. Yeah. So you grew up doing that, getting beat up, kind of.
Yeah.
So was equestrian your first like sport and love early on, just because of the family, or how did that?
Yeah, I think equestrian was my first sport in love. Like it's something I really leaned into, and I always ran because like my sisters were all dancers too, and they were really fit and super skinny, and I was like, I want to be fit and skinny, so they would go running, and I'd go running. Like Thanksgiving Day, my mom would like kick us all out of the house because she was cooking. She's like, do not come back in here till dinner, like unless you're bleeding to death, like, you're not allowed back in the house. And so my dad would be like, all right, everyone do their PR. So he'd send us all in a run, and he'd be the chase car. He'd like, so he'd keep driving. Hey, like who should I pick up next? I'm like, you done now? Like then he'd just drive us back like once we hit our PR.
Yeah.
So running is like a big like part of my family culture, like loving it. So I run was always my like therapy. So I got pretty good at running, and then equestrian, and I did all the sports. I played soccer, I played hockey, but like it was like fine, but nothing. I feel like I own it. You know what I mean?
Do you still ride today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I got back into it after like 10, 20 years being out.
Really, that's a long time. Just situationally, just not around horses, I guess, or something.
Yeah, I'd say I really leaned into my career,
Yeah.
which is cool. And like that took me like the Equinox, and like I had to travel with them. And like
So let's kind of talk about.
Yeah.
So high school, did you play any sports in high school?
I played soccer
Soccer, okay.
and then equestrian, and like the kind you
So
had
they
to
had
travel, like you'd be gone. I missed like 55 days my senior year.
Wow.
And with that, did you sustain many injuries that were significant? I'm sure you had little minor stuff.
Broke
but
my nose
anything
like 2 or 3 times.
so that's pretty common.
Falling off or getting hit? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I fell off, and the horse like got scared and like backed up and like hoofed me in the face. Like, Dad.
That's just part of it, I guess, when you're a country girl around horses,
Then I broke my ankle. It was actually snowmobiling. But I was bummed because I couldn't ride or run doing that. And then much later in life, I broke my hand, but that wasn't until I was like in my 20s.
So graduated high school, and then what did you do right after high school? Did you go right to college? And kind of walk us through college and all that.
So I don't remember any of that. So
Well, I got your resume here.
oh yeah, okay. Well, can I put it down?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, Daddy, I want to sing. Good, go to college. And I wanted to be a horse trainer too. He's like, good, go to college. Like I'm sure you can do that right now. But so we all like we had to like show up with a degree, and then we can kind of like mess around from there. So I went to junior college, and then my sister Debbie, who's like the cool sister, moved to California, and so I'd always like as much as I could like go fly out and visit her in California, and we had to like do things, drink, and do fun things. And so then I just like from Broome just kind of went to California and stuck.
Gotcha. What year is that?
Long time ago.
Okay. Yeah, no need. We don't need to get into specifics.
1882.
Right.
It was a wagon train actually on my way out.
But you guys met like early 2000s, mid 2000s?
Yeah, so we met, 2005
Okay.
was when I was there. And so we met in 2005, and I think you started Cutting Edge around then.
Yeah.
So prior to Cutting Edge, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I went to UCI for a bit. And so I was really good at chemistry. So anytime I wanted to walk into like a school, like I would just apply to be an OChem major, and they're like, oh, there's none of those. Come in.
Right, yeah.
And so I went to UCI for a while, didn't like that school, then transferred to UC Davis, got to show up for their equestrian team. was doing like pre-med UC Davis and organic chemistry. And then that's when my dad got sick. So I moved back down by Debbie and kind of like took a year off. And then just started going to local Cal State Fullerton.
Gotcha.
And then just started taking exercise science courses. Like, I'm here, like, might as well. And that program is like phenomenal.
Is it really? Yeah.
Oh my God. It was like literally, it's like fourth in the nation. Like, it beats USC's Kines program.
Did you know that going into it, or just kind of?
It's a total like accident. I was like, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. That's when like that light bulb went. Like, I love science. I'm good at science. Like, I love sports. Like,
it just resonated.
It just resonated.
Meshed, yeah.
Yeah, and like I never missed class. I was like that nerd in front. Like, I was. Yeah. So then from there, I got to intern with Mike Boyle at Athletes Performance at the time. It's Exos now, and he was like, I was like his only intern.
Which is huge, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I showed up and he's like, I'm the intern. He's like, okay, cool, come with me. I'm like, okay. And I didn't even know then. Like,
trial by fire, just learning on the go every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like my first real experience into the realm of strength and conditioning.
Which is crazy because he's a huge name.
Yeah.
So not even knowing it at the time.
Not even knowing it. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, athletes, that's cool. You guys train athletes? Nice. But got to work for him. So I worked there, like internship, I think like 6 months. And then right after school, that's when I applied to Cutting Edge. And I think that resume, like Todd Norman was like, sure. And he was a Fullerton graduate too. So he was like.
So what was your kind of experience at it with Boyle? Like who were you guys, what kind of clients were you seeing at that time? Because they were doing a lot of combine type stuff, right?
Yeah.
At the time?
So we had the San Diego Chargers were in there. They had their own strength coach, but that was a whole nother story. But like we got to work with the like special teams and like quarterbacks, things like that.
Because you guys were in Carlsbad, is that correct? Carson.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
At the Home Depot Center.
Yeah.
Back then it was it was like a hub of where all these athletes would come. It was kind of a like unique thing that she got to be part of back then.
Yeah.
Now there's a bunch of pods all over, and that's what we'll talk about. But back then there wasn't too much of that.
Well, there's no local NFL teams at that time.
The Chargers.
They were San Diego at that time, right? Yeah. So Carson kind of a little more further north, but now with the Rams and the Chargers both being there, that's just right in the backyard.
Yeah, and they like moved in. Like, they weren't technically our client to start, but they like moved in, and then like a bunch of them hired us.
Yeah.
And then we had US Galaxy. That was our client specifically. US Women's Olympic Soccer. Like Mia Hamm was there, like in the weight room. And we had a bunch of NHL players. So like Mike Boyle is like, a god to the NHL, which he deserves that title. But the guys will follow him anywhere.
Sure.
So we had like Chris Drury and like George Paros and a bunch of like those guys that were like there for him specifically. A bunch of ranked tennis players, and then that must
have been such a great atmosphere with all sorts of different professional athletes. Because I feel like if you're always training with the same guys, there's that same energy. But all of a sudden you're with a hooper or you're with a hockey player, not only is it different builds, but they're probably doing different movements, different exercises. I imagine as an athlete that's super stimulating,
It is just to learn.
Yeah.
Because I'm like I'll learn by like visually, and I'm pretty quiet when you like. So I'm just like would watch it all go down. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, and then like some baseball players were in there, but it was all like the best pros. And he ran, and Exos at the time ran such a tight ship. Like, you were on time. You had to wear Adidas. Like you couldn't, if you stood there like cross your arms, you're like, pulled aside, talk to. Even though I was the only interns. Like,
sure.
It wasn't like I was like in an army. Like, it's just these little things that you learn just to be professional. Quality. If you're missing, you weren't counting reps. Never counting reps. But if someone was doing RDL and like their hip was off, and someone watched you not catch that hip, like so
little details, it sounds like, really mattered.
Yeah, your eye for quality got really good. And even if you don't know exactly what it was at the time, you're just like, okay, that is wrong. Like, fix it. Don't let some person that's gonna a pro, like, their whole body is like their livelihood, and so you have like one little wrong movement, and that's gonna lead into a whole mess of stuff. Like, you'd be like. Yeah, like,
shut that down right there.
Yeah. You were set to held to a higher standard and accountability, and that makes a huge difference. Especially when you're working with top elite athletes. So that's huge. To be an intern, that's invaluable.
Was that your experience as well when you were around at that time?
Well, our internship was a little different with the Safer Cats. We were picking up bloody towels and snot rags and tape. And
it wasn't as glorified,
straps,
for sure.
So we were more of a fly on the wall, observing different like that. But so being around in the sports med world, because we had to do Saber Cats, and then I did LA when I got here, Avengers. It was the same kind of thing. She's saying, I was quiet. I was a fly on the wall as an intern, just kind of soaking it all in, observing. And those were, multi or just one level athlete, so football. So, I got to learn all kind of movement stuff and injury stuff and
Sure.
injury prevention and stuff. With her experience, I mean, top of the top, you just have this kind of, it's like a funnel coming in and get all the top athletes of the top sports, and you get this high quality sports training and corrective movement stuff. That's huge. Yeah. So I can see where leading into Todd Norman, how that was an easy one for him, being with the Ducks and being strength and conditioning, how he saw what you were doing and say, okay, yeah, your resume speaks for itself, and then give you a chance, a shot. So, and that kind of led to that.
Yeah, those.
And how far deep in your career were you? Just like a few years?
Oh, like a year.
Yeah.
like a year.
I was just saying to somebody the other day who's different profession, but my comment to him was that he's saying how difficult it was, and he felt like he was being micromanaged, and he was describing some things, and I said, man, it really sounds like that person is making you pay so much attention to detail. This is going to like be a good place to start, because you're going to develop these good habits versus starting and maybe learning to cut a little corner here or cut a little corner here. That's not a good way to start. Better to know all the details and really be, just covering all your bases, and then with experience maybe figure out, well, I don't need to I can skip this step, or you don't want to start that way.
You don't want to start that way.
Yeah.
And you have to know why. If you're skipping a step, know why you're skipping it and have a really good reason versus
Absolutely.
like, oh, I don't feel like that, or like whatever. Then we started at Todd. So Todd kind of like just threw me in there, like with a mix of these really amazing strength coaches. I think there was me and just one other girl, I think.
Gina. At the time, yeah.
She's a stud. I mean, everyone there was stud, like really good. It's like learning from
very
them.
high quality strength
Everyone there was
conditioning.
motivated.
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Well, yeah, and he had athletes coming from all over too to train with them, and it was a big reputation thing. He was putting together something that he wanted people to know about, and he wanted people surrounded that were top notch too. So
he threw me in. Like, he threw me in the fire. He's like, we'd be going to like high school baseball teams and basketball, and he'd be like, I'd go with him twice. He'd be like, all right, you're good, you go. I'm like, okay. And like, at least I knew what was good and bad.
Sure.
Like Boyle, I said, there's two things. Like, if you know these two things, if something looks athletic, it probably is. If it looks like shit, it's probably shit.
Yeah.
It's like, if you know those
Trust
two things,
your instinct.
like, yeah. And so he's like, and so he threw me in like the fire, and then we got some good athletes out of it. That's when like Dustin too. The cool thing about that, like my favorite part of that whole time, and like what my dream is to like have in the future, is just having like Dustin right there. So you get like a client like that's hurt or like whatever, and like I'm not gonna. We don't have like an AT or something. He's like, all right, like, can you look at this? And you just walk the client right over him. And we'd have a discussion, and then he would like his scope and all the manual therapy and the ART, and then I like talk about what I saw, and then we'd work on these clients. We got some really good success out of it.
Yeah, really good results, and being able to walk over there and put the manual side and then her do the movement side.
Yes.
It was just unbelievable, and the clients felt like, man, they're getting this high quality
It's like
service.
your baton getting passed, not in a bad way, but like, hey, I'm done here, and I'm going to be taken over here.
It was co-management, and it was
co-management. That's the right word.
It's really cool because it was like what we do with the teams. So when I'm working with the team, there's a bunch of different players, not athletes, but medical staff players, right? Strength and conditioning, nutrition, chiro, PT, OT, so we're all working together, and we're all coming to the, common ground of getting the athletes to perform at their highest level and prevent injuries, right? Yeah. And we were able to do that in a strength and conditioning setting, which was really cool. So that's kind of how we met. And yeah.
And how many years were you there? And how many years were you there? For quite a while?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I kind of outgrew the facility, just because, again, my waiting room, I had 4 chairs, and then they were stretching people.
Sure.
And so it wasn't the right fit for me at that time.
Yeah.
So I needed a little more room. So I moved literally 300 yards down on the same street.
Oh, okay. So not far.
So yeah, so it was
basically.
nice. So we could still refer and cross-refer and until they ended up moving the facility. But it was a good synergy for a long time.
That same roof, though, is the dream and the goal for a lot of people, it seems like, like it sounds like you're speaking of that as well. That's, when you take the client into consideration, that's the easiest as opposed to going from here to there to there. If somebody can have a place where all that is available, then that makes it super easy for the athlete or the client, whoever, general population, I guess you can call it, which that was one of the questions I had on if you, see much difference in those two populations, or who do you prefer if you prefer one population over the other?
Like athlete or general pop?
Yeah.
Be careful how you answer this. No,
so I like.
I've been holding this and sipping it for a while. Cheers. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
I feel like if I don't cheers you, you're not going to drink it. So
I'll drink
Just water in there. It's great water.
fumes.
I asked the question first on purpose. That way I could.
So general pop, or I think they're different, obviously.
I mean, honestly, I like athletes better. And if you are general pop and you come to me with a goal, let's go. Like a performance goal.
Sure.
Like weight loss, weight gain, keep me accountable. I can't anymore. Like I think it was over it. And I always say this because strength coaches, as a strength coach, you do not need to have a personality. That's the first. You can be, hey, yo, like this is what we're doing. Here's a workout. Everyone's in groups of like 2 or 4. You can walk around and like call people out.
So let's talk about that difference real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. Difference between a personal trainer and a strength coach. How would you classify the two?
Well, okay, so I might be a little bit of a snob. I think a strength coach, you're coming at it with a lot more education and oomph. Personal trainer is a very broad
entry
and it's a watered down term. But yeah, say personal training. But if someone introduces me, no offense, as a personal trainer, I'm like,
yeah,
come on. Like
no, that's
my husband's friend is like, oh, you're a yoga instructor? Yes, I'm a yoga instructor. Yeah. And she's like, but what do you really do?
Oh,
wow.
I'm like, give me another cocktail. And but like, so, I mean, people don't understand. It's not their fault, But like, some of the sure chiropractors get.
It's
just like lumped into a whole gray area,
Like, oh, like,
yeah,
hey, going to get cracked.
Or we've gotten before. Maybe you. So you do massage, and so that's kind of what we get. So it gets lumped into that kind of category. I can see where it's the same knee jerk reaction. Well, we do soft tissue, but a little more education than that. But yeah.
And so, I mean, I think personal trainer is such a watered down term right now. Like strength, I think as a strength coach, it holds more water. Like you're probably better at what you do if you have that style.
Yeah, nothing to take away from personal trainers, because I started as a personal trainer with a AFA certification. I don't even know if they're still around, but it was AFA, ACE, and then the big dogs.
I think it's about continually evolving and educating yourself wherever you enter in. If you enter in here and you're still there 5 years later, that's an L to me, like,
exactly.
It's like, you have to keep learning. So I could see how it's, personal training, strength and conditioning. And then there's many more, things that you can learn and continue to develop your skill set. Right.
Absolutely. And the things that Prevail right now, there's 6 of us. Strength coach is that athletes they can like hide anything, like they can compensate like athletes.
Right.
So if there's like I think there's some stat like 56% of major league pitchers have a full rotator cuff tear they don't even know about.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and then they get an MRI. Something else hurts, they get an MRI. Like, did you know that was torn too? Like, oh no, huh? That's weird. Like, so they're master compensators. So if you're working on a shoulder or knee or hip, are you helping? Is it there?
You know what? That's such a great point. I don't think that's been like referenced before in our discussions, at least. But you're right about that, because it's hard. It's harder. You have to be sharper at your diagnoses and your evaluations, assessment of the client, because of that compensation, right? I mean, that's what they do. It's not something I had ever considered before, but yeah, they're sneaky a little bit.
Sneaky, yeah,
for sure.
And so even like functional movement screen, like they will like win the functional movement screen.
Right. Yes.
Like no pain, look, no pain. I don't have pain.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think with working with the general population, like a shoulder is a shoulder and a knee is a knee, and like you see like it's not just like you see like their hips doing this and like, oh well, that's why your knee hurts. Like it's such a screaming example of like what's actually going on.
Right.
That you get really good at like your craft if it is whatever you're trying to address, especially in a pain or pathological situation. That you go back to athletes, you're like, you're in the weight room, you see everyone kind of moving okay. You're like, hey, like that shoulder, like it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And so it makes you being personal training. I think in turn has made me a better strength coach.
I believe that for sure.
Let's talk about with your education. Let's go down these acronyms. You have a lot of good letters behind your name. So I'm just going to label or list them, and then you have to tell me what they are and what they mean.
If you get them all right, you get another shot.
Yes. So let's just the CSCS with the D designation.
Yes.
Go ahead.
D means dummy.
Yeah.
So it's certified strength conditioning specialist by the NSCA.
So explain kind of to the population because we kind of know. Yeah.
Okay. So the National Strength Conditioning Association, they're basically a organization that governs strength and conditioning for like collegiate, pro, high school athletes. They give you the guidelines of science, and then they basically like give you all the programming, like program recovery, movement, nutrition, regeneration, how you should treat a pro or collegiate athlete.
So they're kind of the gold standard, right?
Gold standard.
Because I've been asked by personal trainers, like, I really want to get into sports. How can I get in with teams? I said, well, to be honest, the athletic trainers, won't even talk to you if you don't at least have CSCS or part of that education, because that's kind of the gold standard with education. If you do that, they at least know that you have at least this level of education behind it, right? So that's and then from there with the different populations too. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the NCAA, like, it is like the gold standard essentially, and it does get you in the door. And it's like at Fullerton too. Like Dr. Lee Brown was one of the instructors there, and he's the president of the NSCA for years.
Oh, no way.
And he's one of the instructors. Like he taught the strength conditioning course. So like, from going from him, like I will like literally put like every time I need a reference, I'm like, Dr. Lee Brown.
He was the president of what?
The NSCA.
Oh, NSCA.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a great person to learn from, because not only do you get the regular stuff, but I'm sure a little bit of insight and stuff that's coming down the road. Just a good mentor or resource person, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they were into it. Like, I mean, everyone had cool titles there, but nobody was like flashing their badges, so to speak. They were just into it and ready to give you like.
What a good strike.
Yeah.
What's the D designation? Is that
it's like with distinction.
A distinction. Okay.
Like fancy. Like
what do you have to do to get that?
It's a certain number of continuing education units per year, and there's like 5 different categories, and so you have to fill all those buckets for like just to recertify, and then fill them like extra for the distinction. Or if like you speak, you get more. If you like host a, like a review course for the NSCA exam, things like that.
So it definitely holds some weight when you're trying to get your foot in the door for people to know, because part of what our demographic is students too, and students want to know like, how did you get your start? So having those little designations, a lot of them won't know what that's what it takes to go to that next level. So let's talk about CPSS.
So that's another certification for the NSCA. It's Certified Performance and Sports Scientist.
Okay.
So it's new. I get to be the beta testing group, so like they threw the exam at you, and they're like, if you pass, like you get this. But it's cool because it bases it all on like peer-reviewed research. Like, can you read a research article and know what to do with it? And if you read this article, like, how are you going to apply that in the gym? So it's kind of cool. Like, it makes you apply the research to your sports performance. So I just love that because I'm a super nerd.
Yeah.
Like, I'll like read PubMed. Like, what do you guys read? You fiction now?
Right. No, you're like, no, these other things.
Yeah.
I like that. In chiropractic college, I was part of the research club with Bart Green. And, so that was totally geeky, but I loved it.
You just learn new stuff all the time.
Yeah, well,
some of it was not interesting at all, but some of it, every so often, you got a gem and you're like, wow, that's really interesting.
So and it taught me how to actually read research, how to understand it, how to decipher it, and then how to apply it, like you're saying. Because a lot of times for just reports or something, we would have to read the research and then cite it, but it's like, okay, we just go to the summary
Right,
and
yeah.
figure out what the,
For sure.
or the abstract and figure
That was a
out.
completion task.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good way
Let's
to put
finish
it.
this project
Yeah.
and assignment.
Yeah. So, well, cool. I wasn't aware of that one. So USAW, I know what that one is.
Yeah,
right?
USA weightlifting.
Yeah.
It's like Olympic lifts.
Yeah.
And I'm like a level 1 coach. It's basically for Olympic lifts for sports performance versus like Olympic lifts to actually take someone through the competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has that helped you much in what you do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everyone Olympic lifts, like let's go like even like CrossFit, things like that. Like depending on who the coach is, it's like bastardized. And everyone, like actually I was in my client's garage today, and he's Olympic lifting. He's trying to be a really good surfer, and so I was like beating him up, and his neighbor comes in like, oh, doing cleans and such, I could do that. And it was just like the most awful thing.
You saw him do it, and he was just terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, he walked in like my client's fine, and my client's you're like kind of look at me like, is that okay? Is that? But he's like, oh, I got it, and he like, and it's just awful. So I think everyone thinks they know.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then especially in high school gyms, like it's hot. And I think we'd see those high school athletes come in, like the football team would come in, and like no matter what on that team, like every kid, whether they're 5'1" and 120 pounds or like 6 foot and 210 pounds, they all have to clean whatever it is.
Sure.
And then you see these kids like getting under the bar and struggling, and their knees going all different ways, and the coach is like, "Good job, kid! Like, let's get."
Yeah.
And you're like,
"Okay." It's at that level that I think there's a lot of that, right? Because
Yeah.
not when you get down to that, I don't know, intermediate level of high school ball or high school athletics, I don't know if every team has a strength and conditioning coach. It's sometimes the head coach who might be, someone's dad or like someone who's really good in fantasy football and maybe not a real coach. It's like there's a lot of variance, is what I'm saying.
No, a lot of variance. That's a nice word.
We talked about it in one of our podcasts because it gets brought up. Patients would ask us, "Wait, when can I get little Johnny started on weightlifting?" Right? And I had my opinion on. Basically, I talk to my patients before entering high school because, like you just said, we get to see. They're going to be thrown under that bar one way or another, especially football, right? They're just going to be thrown under that bar, and they're going to be said, "Go squat," and nobody's really watching them, right? You got that coach that might not know what they're doing, walking by, say, "Good job, no, good job," and basically they're basing that on, can you get the weight up or not?
Yeah.
They're not looking at form
by any means possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
So I always tell my patients, like, you could start movement patterns 7th grade, 8th grade, or even before. You could do little, it's all about movement at that point, right? Because we're born with perfect squat form, right?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
we lose it.
It is so true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can always work on something and then apply resistance as their body grows into it.
Yeah.
And that resistance could be all kinds of things, right? So
Yeah.
what's your take on it? Like, do you have a blanketed statement if a mom or a dad ask you, like, when can so-and-so start, or is it safe for them? I get that all the time.
Yeah,
Is it safe for them to lift weights? Like, what does the latest research say, like, age appropriate?
Well, because the impact
it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, impact, I think even like as an adolescent, impact makes you grow bones and muscles. Like impact's really important.
Sure.
Yeah.
And bearing load. And like you can bear load, like max load is probably a really bad idea. Like you're not 1 rep maxing an 8-year-old.
Right.
But being able
But
to
doing
like
something, right, is better than not at all.
Carrying the milk jug, helping mom with, some waters or,
Right. You're dragging your, like, even when you're kids, like you're dragging your friend around on a sled or whatever. Like, oh, like don't load the child. Like,
it's happening anyways.
Just on a little side tangent, it made me think of like PE in school, right? I think it's still mandatory where you have PE if you're in high school. But my high school PE was different sports that we played. And I think we had 1-2 week period where we were like in the gym and had to do like, how much bench press can you do? What's your sit and reach? Like all these weird things. Why aren't we in PE class teaching these things to kids who are in, say, 6th grade, like movement patterns, no weights, maybe just banded or maybe no bands, just this is how you plank. This is how you do a proper squat. This is a proper movement. And then I don't know why that's not built in. I mean, we've talked about this before. I feel like we're an unhealthy collective as a nation, and it's like, if you start those habits young, I feel like that gives you an outlet for stress. It gives you a great foundation as you get older. That way, when you're in high school athletics and your whatever coach is telling you to do something, you at least have some idea, right?
Yeah.
What was your high school experience in PE and what was yours, Dustin?
My God.
But why don't we do that, do you think?
I mean, I was like Bumble F New York, like the only Catholic school, like way in the hills. Like I don't.
So it was just different.
It was just different.
Yeah.
Like we said, run.
Yeah.
I think we had like one bench and like the plates didn't match. And
yeah. I did PE in junior high. I didn't do it in high school because part of sports we didn't have to because that was our thing. But in junior high, we still did all the, we learned all the track movements. We learned all volleyball, all the different sports.
Yeah.
So if you entered high school, you at least had a knowledge base. But it wasn't very structured at all. You see other cultures, like on social media, you'll see like these Japanese kids doing amazing things at young age, right? It's just their culture, their discipline. I think other cultures do a way better job.
It'd be great for
I don't think
young kids.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, and
it'd be great for their mental, their attention span, like an outlet if you have stress.
Just their confidence, like
their confidence,
mental health and confidence. If
I
you
didn't
can
even
move your
think of that.
body,
Yes.
because there's so many kids. You watch the playground, they can't even run, they can't play tag, they can't, because they're on their phone and they're hunched over and they look like a ball, and then to ask them to run. Well, like we've talked about, like emergency situations, you gotta prepare for life, right?
Yeah.
And why do we wait till we're later on? Usually people start really taking note of it in their 20s, like, oh crap, I better start doing something.
Yeah.
But the patterns could have been created way before.
I saw, just to interrupt, I saw a hit and run a couple weeks ago. I was pulling up to a light and there was an argument in the street. They started fighting, and then one guy got in the car and backed into the guy, knocked him down. The guy who got knocked down got in front of the car, and then he got run over again. Or knocked out of the way. Yes. And I tried to turn and stop the dude, and he then I was like, I'm about to get T-boned right now. So immediately, just instinctively, I pulled in front, and I was like, oh, he's not slowing down. He went up on the sidewalk and went around, but the guy tried to chase him. One, he got knocked down twice, but he tried to chase him. He went about a half a block and gave up. And when I was talking to him later, he's like, I thought I was in better shape than that. And I said, well, you did get hit by a car twice. But he was in pretty good shape. But it made me think, sometimes we talk about if you have to chase someone or someone's chasing you. If someone's chasing you, are you running a mile? Are you running a block?
Yeah.
Because, it.
And agility too. You need to cut and
Yeah.
dive and whatever. That's
Yep, for survival. Yeah, and
that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, for life.
Yeah.
Life fitness, right? So
it's a little discouraging when you see people a little older. I was having a discussion with a patient who was saying over Thanksgiving, like a lot of people visited family, that their mom was having a hard time couch to table and with the grandkids. And in my head, I thought maybe mom was 70 and mom's 62. I was like, that is the 60s. I don't want to be that's old, but that's not that old.
No,
you should be able to move around. And so then it got into a discussion of, I wish people were stronger when they're older, more muscle mass. And I wish that they worked on their flexibility, but also their balance, right? Sometimes with strength and flexibility, you naturally develop that balance. But I don't see very many people working on balance. And the one or two older patients that I've had work on balance, it comes back quick.
It does.
So it's man, why are we not doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a big thing. And I try to have all my patients, we work on balance. I have a couple different boards, different things that we work on. And I usually try to end if nothing else, teach them balance progression. But another thing to take it the next step further, I think we should all start working from, strength and conditioning, chiro, health, start working on our patients going from ground up too.
Yeah,
from fall, how are you going to get up,
interesting.
or, rolling techniques, right? Because slips and falls happen all the time, but so many people aren't trained how to roll through it or so they're getting hurt by freaking out and then putting their arm out,
or putting their arm
out, break a shoulder,
How do you practice that with somebody older?
Yeah, tumbling drills, crawling drills. You do the crawl progression. There's tons of crawl progression techniques, and then you go from the back to rolling. Who was it?
I might need you guys to talk.
No, it's a great Cook.
Cook, Cook does it's really cool. It's not easy if you don't practice it, but where you swing a leg over and you kind of flop over and then flop over, you should be able to do it. And I think having our patients,
thought of that really.
It's really cool.
We should do it later before we go.
I would love to see that.
But then it really, to your point, neurologically does not take, because it's an instinct we all have. We just need to turn it on again.
Right.
So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to work on that. Like, there's no way I can balance. There's no way I can roll or crawl. And then you start doing it, and I have my clients or patients not even really knowing what they're doing. And pretty soon I do a progression, and they're like, hey, we're going to do this today. And then you do it, and they're like, I didn't even know I could do it. Because you neurologically, you gave little touches, right? That neuroplasticity, little touches.
No, it makes
and
sense.
then all
when
of a
you
sudden
talk
they
it
just
out.
do it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think like I want to get my patients rolling and crawling more. Like I do a lot of balance work in my practice, just neurologically, because it turns on the whole system, even neck aches, right? Like shoulders, everything. I just have balance. I have the body blades we've talked about,
Sure.
the BOSUs, you know. But I think the crawling, I'm thinking about it more. I'm seeing so many of my patients falling lately. I think people are a lot, and these are young people too, just distracted and distressed and not thinking straight, and they're falling and they're getting hurt pretty bad.
You shouldn't get hurt. Like think of like an NFL player. You shouldn't get hurt from falling.
Right. Well, that's why I tell people. They're like, "Well, I fell."
Well, there's an art to it, though. You're right, though.
Like,
Like that's why Tom Brady would get a hit and crumble. Kind of. He was, you know, there is something to it. It's not something I really thought about.
Yeah. If you do it enough, it's just instinct, right? Like Tom Brady, they've done it. He doesn't even have to think, "Oh, I got to tuck and roll."
Sure.
It just happens. So, like, if we just have our patients just little touches, or our clients little touches all the time, when it does happen, God forbid it happens, their body will at least be more prepared and hopefully protect them from a break. Maybe they might still get banged up, but
no, that makes sense.
Yeah, because if you know, as you get older, if you break a ankle, hip, knee,
sometimes it's the beginning, first domino.
Yep. And it's scary and sad. And the recovery time just is so much harder.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Well, in a real world situation, Kori, I had somebody, I don't want to call them out because they're listening. They do listen. But she had trouble. She had some back pain. And I said, well, what are you doing? She teaches piano. A lot of time, you know, just like the computer, just hands forward, shoulders forward. And to shorten the story, I said, do you foam roll your back? She's like, I've never really been shown how to do that. I said, let me show you. So I said, I start by just sitting on the foam roller, and I rolled through it, tighten my core. I don't want you to arch in your low back. Get it to about your ribs and focus like ribs to shoulders. That was my advice. I don't know if that's, you know, if you guys have different way, but what I noticed was her getting onto the foam roller, and it was difficult. She's like, oh, I think I'm going to fall. And then she got down. I said, tighten up here. And then she was struggling. I said, let's crab walk. And I haven't really seen that before, maybe because I'm so used to working with a younger population, or my older patients, I'm working on a knee or a shoulder. I never really,
I've seen
not frequently have said that. So where should that person start, where they're like just struggling to kind of get down that low?
That's like, I think, I mean, the most passive position you can get them in, just like that is the way to do it. Because they get on like, oh, like they're going to pull something, or like, you know, and the sympathetic drive is so great that what you're trying to do is going to go out the window because you're trying to relax a muscle or turn something off, and they're sympathetic. Like, I mean, or just get one of those sticks like the tiger tails and just start, you know, like manual or like you taught me, like just that, like use your fingers, you know, whatever it is, like you have to get your fingers
to loosen it up. You mean?
Yeah, just to get that pressure, and then once they can, you know, get mobility, then get them down. But
would you have them do something like, okay, lay on your back and practice getting up like 10 times or something? Or would you do more like the crawling like you? Like
yeah, so this gets to your next acronym, or FMS. So 1 and 2, you're an FMS. So go ahead and describe that, because I think that kind of goes into what he's talking about. How
functional movement specialist.
Yeah. So you're trained and certified in FMS. I don't even know if you use it much
I use
anymore.
it. Yeah. I mean, especially it's such a good tool to see where your client's at. So it's functional movement screen. It's 7 movement patterns. Again, like everyone's born with. So if you like had a baby and threw it out in a field and it survived, it would grow up in the first like 18 months with these movement patterns.
Got you.
So like stepping, lunging, rolling, like disassociation of like your hips.
Okay.
And then shoulder mobility, hip mobility. And then rotary stability. So like that rolling pattern.
I was counting that 7. Good.
Yeah.
But that goes into your question about rolling, or where do you start? If you do FMS on somebody, do a functional movement screen, you can break down what patterns might be weak or weak link. Like his client or patient, you could do an FMS on and see where a weak link might be, where we would just naturally think, oh, it's your core.
Right.
There might be something else disassociated, where you can dial it in a little more. Is that correct with
Absolutely.
FMS?
So then there's a hierarchy. Like we don't need to go into that now, but there's a hierarchy of patterns where you start.
Got you.
And most of them like active straight leg raise. Like if you're a baby and you're back kicking, like that's your first pattern you're gonna have. So that's where you'll start to fix.
Okay.
And then like shoulder mobility, and then you always go mobility before stability. Because their thing is stability is reflexive. Like if you're walking down the street with some skis on your back and you hit ice, like, you're gonna like flail like an idiot to stay upright and stable. So like you don't know what you're gonna fire correctly if you don't have stability. So stability is like, you basically want to make sure you have. So if it's, let me back up a little bit. So if it's a mobility or stability issue, if it's a consistent issue, it's mobility. If it's an inconsistent issue, it's stability.
So meaning, if it's a consistent issue, it's a mobility issue, meaning like instability issue?
No, like let's say my shoulder, I can't get my shoulder over my head. So I'm like, oh, like, and it's always stopping here.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's going to be mobility.
Makes sense.
But if depending on my position, if I can get in my shoulder different places, then it's stability. So if you lay me on my back on the ground and my body's unstable, and I was thinking, boom, I can go overhead. Like, oh, that was a stability. That wasn't mobility.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. I got you.
So it basically gives you a way to like a hierarchy to like go after that with your clients or athletes. And basically with FMS, they show that asymmetry is the greatest cause of injury. So if you have like right to left asymmetry, and well, of course all our athletes are asymmetrical.
Have some, yeah.
And it's natural for sport, but like you try to make them as symmetrical. You try to like basically you build that house, right? So their structure is very solid on all sides, and then send them into their sport or like. Yeah. But that helps a lot, even for like. So it was made for athletes, but when you do it with your general fitness clients, I mean, there's these screaming holes that you're like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so it makes it so like cozy because you're not guessing. You all right? Like that's out. We're just gonna work on this or mobilize that. Does that answer your question?
No, it really does.
Okay.
I have a candid question to ask to both of you guys. Have you ever felt, or do you ever feel like sometimes when you're working with the general population or a younger athlete, high school, or maybe even younger, maybe I don't articulate this perfectly, but you can kind of practice with that population a little bit for your pro athlete population in a sense, right? Like you're not experimenting with the high level athletes if you're trying something new that you just learned. Getting to your point about sometimes there's these big holes with a general population or a younger athlete that you can work with more things, right? Have you ever felt like that? Or have you ever, because I've had that approach sometimes, not that I look at a high school athlete less, like my focus is less or anything like that. It's just they have there's so many areas of improvement, whereas a high level athlete maybe only has one or two things.
Yeah, I think for me, and I know what you meant, and so
so articulate it better.
So for me, it's not that we experiment on our patients, or like look at them like you're our guinea pig and we're going to see if this works. So then when we work on our real patients, right? I know that's not what you meant. So I think I take what you're saying, there's so much more. So it's like more data points, right? I can gather more information from my general population than I can from my athletes, because by the time we get to our athletes, like to your point, there's such a narrow, because they do hide a lot.
The correction is so specific sometimes.
Yes, so there's less.
Yeah.
So whereas with our general population, we have so much more to work with, which is actually kind of fun because it's a lot more data points and having to figure out things.
I sometimes learn way more with a younger athlete or I hate to even call it general population, but a non-pro athlete population.
I've learned way more from non-pro athletes than athletes.
No, it's a great point. I think a lot of people don't reflect on or think about it. I'm glad you brought it up.
And I think there's a lot more opportunity for trainability in your high school athlete or general pop. Yeah. Like there's you're working on every strand of the spider web.
Yes.
Where with athletes, maybe you're just working on one strand or two strands. Point, it's then you're just
you guys probably did better in English than I did. You both stated that better than I did.
No, that's a team effort, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I these certs are nice. Strong first level, I know what that is, or level 1, strong first.
Yep.
So, but a lot of people don't know what that is, and I think I like this, sir. I think more people should incorporate this into even what we do. I know I incorporated it in my rehab, but go ahead and explain what strong first is.
So strong first, it used to be associated with RKC, or Russian kettlebell. So Pavel
Mhm.
Kasulin.
Mhm.
I said it, but he's the one that started it,
Mm-hmm.
and he is it's basically 6 basic movements, and you learn them, and you're absolutely correct with them. And they like, to be a coach for them, you have to like pass a strength test.
Got you.
You can't just know the information, dude. You have to actually pass
Yeah,
it.
It's
to actually do
grueling,
it,
though. I remember when you were going through it. It's brutal.
Yeah, I was
right?
at him every other week. Like,
Yeah.
it's subscapular
It's
nerve
brutal.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like crying, sweating, like crawling into your office.
It's brutal.
It's brutal. And I failed the first time because, like, of
Mhm.
course, like smarty pants, I did it in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm like,
Well,
just
altitude.
like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I got dying. But so it's like squat, press, get up, clean, snatch,
All kettlebell.
all kettlebell.
Russian, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like that's like what you do,
Mhm.
and you do it very well, or you don't go home with a cert.
Yeah.
Everyone's and what the cool thing is that, I mean, what I love about kettlebells is that you pick your path that your body likes the most with them versus a dumbbell or barbell. It's off center, so you're always stabilizing, right? So like you go to those certs and everyone shows up, and I luckily I got certified, and then I got to assist at like 3 or 4 of their certs. So you're there all weekend, like helping people once you pass. It is the most brutal weekend ever.
Yeah.
It's like corporal punishment. Like if you were 3 minutes, like our group was 3 minutes late for lunch the first time. Everybody was doing like swings and bear calls.
I know.
And everyone had to keep swinging and bear calling until like the last person made it. Like, and so you're like, no.
Yeah.
But it's cool because you're not being late for lunch day too.
Sure.
But there's so many people when they show up, they're moving like crap. Like there's like guys that can't reach, overhead. There's no overhead mobility, and there's like muscle heads, and like you're like, oh wow.
And there's such value to that, right? Like, I mean, whether you're strong or so sports specific, I think to be able to functionally move in all those different types of ways, I'm super curious because I bet I'd be really weak in a couple of those areas.
But it's cool because by the end, so you like, and me as like a strength coach and like scientist, I'm like, oh, that rotator cuff's going, that guy's gonna blow a knee, like, oh, that there goes an Achilles. But by the end of the cert, by the end of 3 days, nobody's hurt. People have bloody like calluses. Nobody's hurt, and like so they get the CNS so well that the nervous system has changed, and they're moving at the end of just 3 whole days.
Just that much time.
Nobody's hurt.
That's amazing.
And everyone's moving great.
Yeah.
And so you're like, there's a great science behind it because you're like, how do you do that? How are you that aggressive with that much weight and that much movement, and you don't like have people blow things all the time.
Man, so you see that firsthand when you're learning, and then you can't help but apply it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and then great ground standing, the Turkish get up, ground standing all the time, and it's shoulder stability. And it's like well done. Like have people do it with a shoe. Like you don't need to do it with a kettlebell, but it's.
I almost feel like that patient I was talking about or friend I was talking about should start with that, no weight or very little weight. Like let's get from on the ground to sitting to standing, like I was really shocked. And so it made me wonder at what age I was reflecting, and I'm curious what you guys think. At what age do you see that decline on average? Not an athletic population, right? But our friends and family, like where do you see where people are like, you're a standard deviation worse and 2 standard deviations worse, now you're in trouble. You're like in the gray zone of about to be. It's great.
And he throws hay bales out. He freaking drives a tractor. He digs his driveway out. And we were there once we got stuck in the ditch. Like the first time I met him, and we're like in the ditch. I'm like in the snow. I'm like, oh, we're gonna die here.
Yeah.
And this like old guy comes out of his house. I'm like, we're all, and he just like picks his car up. Like we're in it. He's like, there you go. And he's like 80. He was like 80 years old at the time. He's like, all right, there you go. And so like your body, I think from an adaptability standpoint, will keep in place what you ask it to keep in place.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you should almost say that again because it was, I asked you at what age, reflecting on patients, thinking of my parents, but you're right. It's when you stop doing things, right?
Stop challenging your body, right? It's
Yeah.
challenges like we were talking about. That's why like practice for our anywhere. Honestly, anybody over 35, I think kind of one of the things I read at one point where we start, if we wanted to give it an age, it's after when people enter the workforce.
Yeah.
It's after college.
Full time.
Yeah. So when you enter the workforce, whatever age that was, typically is when, because your patterns change, right?
Yeah.
Now you have a 9 to 5 or an 8 to whatever, and you have that movement pattern, and then you drive home, you sit on the couch, and then you start all over
Just
again.
prove your habits.
So so very little movement, right? So you start eating different, and then throw kids in the mix, or throw lifestyle change in the mix, and you're not eating, you're not sleeping, stress levels are different. Whereas when we're going through college, or all the way through college, it's different too. You're active, your
Less routine,
expectations
right?
are different. Yeah. So, but to your point, like continuous movement. That's why I like Tai Chi. Like Tai Chi is an awesome form of continuous movement. You see those cultures that practice Tai Chi in the park. They're so young and active.
Well,
they're
that's what made me
80s,
think
90s,
about
100s.
balance.
Yeah.
It's not that it's so hard. There's a little neighborhood park up in the Bay Area where my cousins live, and several times a week, there's like 30 elderly people doing Tai Chi. And one, it looks cool. They're all synchronous. It just looks cool. And my cousin said to me, man, what a waste of time. They're like, that's not even hard. And I kind of agreed that it wasn't hard, but upon reflection, it's about the balance and about the breath. And I haven't done it. I'm just observationally, I think the breath is important and the balance is important. But the flip side of the coin of asking you at what age, which, appropriately answered, is there an age where you feel like that really drops off? If somebody comes in, right, it's too late, they stop doing things, they've been in a desk job for 3 decades, and now they're picking up their grandkids, or now they're doing this thing, and they're like, my body's falling apart. Is it never too late, or is there you messed up, you're 85,
Well, you're screwed now. Well, I don't know. I've got my niece Kylie, who I hate because she's better than me in my own field, but she's a PhD in neurobiology, and so she studied, like, her whole thing was on aging.
I love that. Yeah.
So we can actually, you should have her as a guest.
Okay.
She'd answer all those questions.
Interesting things to me.
Yeah. But she, like, her basically is like use it or lose it too. There are, like, certain ages where it starts to decline, but then is that because of these populations are more sedentary now?
Sure.
And then another, like, Michel Delcourt, he's the Viper, the inventor Viper.
Yeah.
But his whole thing, and he bases everything on research too, is that your body will keep changing, like, will keep adapting until the day you die. So if you keep asking, at least it might not change like it did when you were 16, but it'll still try.
Yeah.
And so
you never lose that ability.
It might not be like, it might not be as exponential as you were as a child, but, like, I trained a 96-year-old guy. He was, like, the original producer of the musical Hair. And he came to me, and he's 86 when he came to me. And he had a bunch of neuropathy from doing way too much LSD
In his feet, neuropathy?
Yeah. And he would shake, and sometimes he's great, sometimes he's awful, but he was, you like hold him up, he was like 6'4". And we were doing, like, just little things like, chest press machine, and in like 3 weeks he was like, he had little pecs and a bicep.
Nice.
And he was able to walk better.
Yeah.
Like, so, like you said, the balance comes quick, but he was 86 and he was, like, screwed neurologically just from, like, his lifestyle. But he still, like, things changed, like, visibly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think of a lot of patients that come in who are our age, I'll say, and I've heard a lot this year specifically. I don't know if it's post-COVID and just a couple years of different lifestyles, less travel, but a lot of people are worried and concerned about their parents. And my mom's 70, my dad's 75, and that's why I ask you the question, what is an age where it's like such a point of diminishing returns? I've always thought the same, where it's like, well, you can always develop it. Your body is adaptable and will respond. But it's almost like somebody should create, maybe the 3 of us here, like a routine for people our parents' age, 70 to 80. Here's a 10-year plan. And, we look at things in the off season, like 6 months for athletes. So it's super condensed.
Yeah.
But maybe we could create, or somebody could create something where it's like year by year. Your first year training as a person who's taken a long time off and you're a parent or a grandparent, we're focusing on, I don't know, I'm making it up, mobility, and then the next year's band work, and the next year's functional, whatever it is. I don't know if that exists. Like my mom and people like my mom are often like, well, what do I go do? I don't want to get somebody I know who's of that age group got a personal trainer. And I guess maybe the stipulation between those, but she was like, I'm so sore. I'm always so sore. And I was like, man, I know sometimes as a trainer, you feel like you did your job if the person is really sore, but I don't want my mom to go to the gym every day and come back sore. She's older. I want her to come back feeling like I'm looser, I have more mobility. Her strength is what it is, you know. Maybe she could get 10% stronger, right? But yeah, what are your thoughts, either of you guys, on that? You know?
Yeah, I think like you were saying, you continually can adapt, right? So keep challenging yourself. Motion is lotion, right? So we keep moving, get the joints moving, get them lubricated.
Yeah.
I also say, you know, we talk about with muscles, adhesions forming, right?
Sure.
Adhesions form one through too much repetition or from too much sedentary, not moving or sustained motion. So if you keep moving, you won't allow those adhesions to form, you know? And so it's kind of like the Rolling Stone doesn't collect moss. Well, you keep moving, you won't collect adhesions type thing. Yeah. So for both the joints, for calcium, and for the muscles, adhesions. So I think creating patterns where we, at the ages that you're talking about, get outside of our hula hoop. That's what the problem, what I see, is that
meaning
as we
outside
age,
your hula hoop, like
so pretend this is a hula hoop, right?
Yeah.
In our life, if I put a hula hoop around you, okay, most of your life is spent within this hula hoop space. You eat, you drive, you do paperwork,
all the
you
normal
type,
stuff,
everything.
Yeah.
And so we are in this pattern. What happens if you push me outside of this? Then I'm going to have an issue because my body is trained in this little sphere right here. So I want to train outside of that sphere. That's why Tai Chi gets way out here, way up here, way out here. So we want to challenge. Or what happens when your mom goes to reach the cabinet, right? Or dusts something off. Shoulder issues, neck issues, right? It's because now she just broke the mold. Her mold is here.
A couple years ago, she reached for something, lost her balance, fell down, hit her head.
Yeah.
Could have been
Broke
terrible.
That mold, yeah.
But like the next thing we did was get a foam board, a foam pad, and it was just like, let's start from ground zero. Like, let's have you barefoot on this and just recognize you're not as stable as you thought you were.
Yeah.
When you were speaking, I just thought of outside the hula hoop. I don't know if either of you guys saw. Are you a basketball fan at all in particular? Yeah. There was a Laker game last week.
I appreciate it. And I've trained for like basketball teams.
Okay.
But yeah.
So outside the hula hoop, say we go to a Laker game, the three of us. One of us gets called to take the halftime shot. Okay. So this guy gets called to take the halftime shot, and he blew his Achilles shooting the ball.
Yeah, from half court.
And he went, and he was like, ah! And the ball wasn't even at the 3-point line before he was limping.
Yeah.
And the announcer guy said, oh, you missed that shot, but we're going to give you a chance at a 3-pointer to make up for it or something along that. And he kept going and checking his heel and checking his. And I just thought to myself, gosh, that's probably not someone who on the regular is even. I don't want to make an assumption, but sometimes freak things happen, right? Like, but dang, that was unfortunate. I was just like, I'd be curious. Like, I just felt like that guy probably wasn't someone who trains typically or is like doing an explosive movement very often, and then you do it and snap in front of everybody.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Did you see the thing?
I saw it.
Okay.
And the ball didn't go very far.
It didn't?
No.
You know what? I was looking at the guy's leg. I didn't even see where the ball went.
From what I heard, I couldn't see it, but everybody said it didn't even make it like close. But I felt for the guy. But
that's real life stuff.
It's real life stuff. He didn't train for real life stuff. Okay, that's an emergency. You're in a mall food court and shit's going down, and you got to run out of there quickly.
Yeah.
That guy's, or somebody that hasn't trained to jump over, like you said, agility, jump over chairs, dive under things. Dang it.
I probably wouldn't admit this, but I'm going to tell you guys right now, and we can edit this out later. I went earlier to Trader Joe's to grab a couple little snacks because we were out. And I took the wrong little route. There was a bush in my way, probably 18 inches high, 2 feet in length. And it wasn't the height. I just didn't anticipate. It was longer than I thought. So I hopped over it. It was fine. I've had an ACL repair. My right hamstring, as I was walking to the store, I was like, I really extended that thing, didn't I? I was like, yo, that is not a hurdle like high school hurdles, That was just like a bush. I was kind of proud of myself,
That you even attempted.
I mean, I attempted it. I did it. Nobody saw it, but I was just like I kind of felt it. And I was like, bro, I think maybe you need to do some box jumps,
Yeah.
Train for real life.
You need that impact. Because I just really spent the last year and a half getting my master's in clinical nutrition. And I swear I get fat and lame. Sitting that much, learning.
I find that hard to believe because you're training all day long, aren't you?
Well, but I sat more than ever. Because usually I would ride and run or I do something, but those like 12 months, 18 months, I was like, oh my God.
Rough.
Definitely different.
Yeah. Like my knees were blowing out, but then you give like yourself like some like planned impact, like just planned overload, and your tendons like, oh, thanks. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like so people like they feel that pain, like, oh, I can't, and they stop. And that's like push through pain if it's like a real pathology, but like they stop at the pain and they back up versus like systematically like training to the point where like they're.
How do you teach that to your clients that there's a difference there?
Send them to class.
What was the question?
how do you teach clients or train clients that there's, sometimes there's pain because of injury and sometimes there's just discomfort that like, hey, you got to knock that rust off and work through that.
Yeah.
I try. I mean, it's hard. Some clients are fine with it and they're going to push anyway, which is cool to a point. But then always I just try to like, I'm always just hacking the nervous system. So if something hurts, if it's like anterior knee, I just try like, we'll really just go after hamstring, and I'll like try that again.
Sure.
Like, oh, it's better. You know what I mean? So just try to like, I'll sit there and like, I don't necessarily talk too much. If they want to know the signs, I'll try to tell them. But if not, I just like pull back and try to like make the movement as small as possible, but the same movement, and then be like, oh, like there's no pain, and then just gradually like feed it back in.
Yeah.
Or people are like, oh, I can't squat. It's bad for me. I can't squat. Okay. Well, then like just sit down on this chair and stand back up. Like, okay, I can do that. Great. Then we'll do that.
We're going to call that something else. We're not going to call that a squat because you can't do that. We're going to call that.
Yeah. Or you can like, I'm not going to deadlift. Well, that's fine. But like give them like a kettlebell and have them like pick it up. But oh wow, my knee feels so much better. And so like, I think it's more, a lot, like say the type A, like older clients, like you have to just
get them comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just don't, like if they feel like they're pushing it, like I think you also helped me with this. But the FMS people too say like once you reach the threshold and push people like into the sympathetic nervous system, you're screwed. That movement pattern is not going to change because it's all about, oh God, this is hard, I got this. You have to back it up so it's so easy and so comfortable that their nervous system's like, cool, this is awesome, we like this, and then go from there.
So that's almost like a training philosophy then. You want to make sure that they're in that mode so they can accept what you're giving them.
Yeah, exactly. And if something hurts, you can't, like relative pain, if someone says something hurts, you have to believe it.
Sure.
Because I don't know what your pain is to me or you know what I mean? So you have to be like, you can't be like, oh, you're fine, like keep going, because that makes you an asshole.
I think the danger of pro athletes is the opposite, where you're like, are you good? I'm good. And you're like, bro, are you good though? Like you're above and beyond. And so I find the opposite with like, okay, we don't want you redlining. Like, I know you're good. You're good at a red line at a 9.5 out of 10. Let's make sure we don't take it red. Let's keep it yellow, And so it's like the opposite problem sometimes,
And so you don't know what personality type, especially a new client, you don't know. Like I have a lot of clients that are like, they get it now. But you kind of have to believe there's pain. And then, all right, well, okay, try this. Okay, try this. Okay, try this. So you keep just like having them try things that they're comfortable with and then go forward from there versus just being like, you're good. Keep pushing.
So that's one of the things me and Kori, and this kind of gets into it, but talked about when we were first, working together and getting to know, we always wanted to kind of figure out a way to bridge the gap between strength and conditioning and movement pattern, healthcare, right? Yeah. Because there's a lot of overlap, right? It's like that Venn diagram where we have, strength and conditioning, we have healthcare, and then in between the athletes or PTs don't see eye to eye because PTs like, dude,
don't you feel like that's so antiquated?
Yeah.
No.
What do you mean by antiquated?
I just feel like it's like obviously we have a different roles and different whatever, but if the thought process is you don't do anything and I do it all, or vice versa, I just think that's like an antiquated view. I think we all need to work together and just understand this is what you're great at, and this is what you're great at, and this is what I'm great at, and like how do we, all hold hands to help the client, right? Yeah. And that kind of bothers me. I have that happen every so often. It's like, okay,
that's what we really wanted to work on, and we're continually working on it. It's a work in progress, right? Because between the professions, it's always evolving, right? So, but it's still, I still see it where you still hear, the mistrust between,
Yes.
especially when you're working in the group with the teams. Unfortunately, you'll hear
Is that right?
some
Right.
mistrust between
Gotcha.
players or medical or whatever, and then there's talking behind people's back, and then it gets really diluted, and then
Is that just difference of opinions?
difference in opinions and egos get in the way.
Egos are huge.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, who's in between it all is the athlete,
Right?
and then they're all screw it. Like, I don't know who,
See,
and that's where you come.
often.
But that's what's awesome about your role. I remember how we always talk.
Yeah,
Grass isn't greener, because
Sure.
we'd be having conversations. I'm in with the teams. He's
Yeah.
outside doing
I
concierge
was
work.
like, you're getting
with
free
yeah,
gear.
Yeah, you're
That's so cool.
I know.
stuff. And I'm like, bro, the grass is not always greener. And then I'd be like, oh, but you're doing this, and this. You don't have to deal with all, the BS. You could be on your side. You get to hear all the stories. And so, but I just think we all can we all just get along type thing, right? And so I still think we need to figure out, I think, if we can come up with some kind of educational piece, and platform to start bringing healthcare and strength and conditioning together somehow.
It's huge.
And
Yeah.
I think it'd be great for both professions.
Do you think that's like maybe a new, just, top of my head, like a new certification or a new, like something that's like interdisciplinary, where it's like, okay, we're chiropractors, but we also, with this certification or this training, have X amount of hours in training in this discipline and also this whatever those are,
That would actually just like turn on a light bulb for me, because as a continuing education piece, that'd be cool to get like chiros, PTs, strength coaches, like whoever else you want to throw in there, and have them all in the same room, and then put them in groups and have them do case studies together.
Right, because everyone has their own kind of perspective, like a slice of the pie, and I feel like I understand some of different professions' perspectives. Obviously, maybe not as much as if I was in that profession and I've grew 25 years of experience in it, but I feel like working with different providers and just the experience level, I feel like some of that animosity comes from that. It's like, well, you don't maybe really know what this discipline does if you have this animosity or this edge to you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think it might be the discipline, also the individuals too. Because I think, Charlie Weingroff, he's I
don't know who that is.
He's a physical therapist.
Okay.
And he's very like, what's the word? He's, his opinion. He talks a lot. And he's kind of like, I don't know, he's really good, but also very like outspoken. And but his thing was that, like, the truth is 80% of personal trainers suck. 80% of physical therapists suck.
I think it's probably every profession, right?
It's like 80% of chiropractors suck.
Yeah.
And so like he like has this whole like speech, and he's like, he went through like orthopedics, and like in your sports world, 80% of everybody sucks.
Yeah.
There's 20% don't. So find that 20%, and that's your network.
I would say average and
like
great.
The people,
right?
the people that you know are great, and if you're great, and then that's like I know, like, I'll freaking trust you with like go. Like I'll just, it's not like I'm versus like if I call like looking like online, be like, oh, here's a chiropractor, go to a chiropractor.
Right. So much variance.
So it's a lot of variance. I think that like finding as you grow in I think for like all the students listening too, as you grow in your profession, find your masseuse, your chiropractor, your physical therapist that will like trust you, and you might have to earn that trust.
Yeah.
And then that's who your circle is.
What a valuable thing too, to grow with a team, right? Because in all the people that I've known since they came in when they were young, I feel like, I was telling somebody the other day, I could close my eyes and feel so-and-so's trap or calf or hip flexor. Like I know what that feels like. And so I think that comes with starting with somebody really young. And then also from the education standpoint, I love being like, okay, bro, you're in your third year in the league. You need to think of it like you're a junior getting your degree in sports medicine. I don't care if you're a business major, a communication major, you didn't have a major.
Yeah.
Now you're a pro athlete. Your minor needs to be physiology, nutrition, all these things that are sports medicine. Otherwise, if you're just playing, I think you're not going to be the great. You're not going to be the LeBron, the Kobe, the Tom Brady, the guys who have the longevity because they did the extra stuff. It's like saving for retirement. I start that today, like, okay, maybe in 20 years something, but like had I started that when I was 18 from the very get, I think that compounding interest literally in this example, but figuratively in your team really pays dividends. You know, you get to know the person and some nuances, you know?
Yeah.
And that makes you look good. If you refer to someone who's really good, it makes you look better.
That's such a great point too. You've had a few really good points.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, one of the things I always say is like, if you, to somebody new, if I feel pretty confident that we can figure out what's going on, but if I can't, I definitely know somebody that will figure it out. Like, I'm not the person, but I promise you, I'm 1 degree removed from the person who can figure it out. And it's just a matter of, is it Dustin? Is it Corey? Who is it, you know? And yeah, I guess you got to think of the client first versus like your ego of like, I'm going to continually try to, you know.
Yeah. That's where the team effort comes into play. And I think that's what we're all trying to get at, is how can we work together in a better manner for the better result, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on the education piece, you've done a lot with continuing ed and with Equinox. So kind of talk that through real quick. Like, what was your involvement with that, and how do you think that helped you, and how do you think that helped the profession as far as the trainer gap?
So it was when I hired Equinox, I spent like 3 months there, and then I was walking around one day, like it's one of those days you show up to work and you're like in your disgusting sweats and hat, and you can't wait for the day to be over.
Yeah.
And one of my managers was like, "You're supposed to be in that class." I'm like, "Class? What class?" You're like, "We're training new master instructors. You're supposed to be in there." I'm like, "I am." Okay, so
News to me.
I walk in there, and they're like, "Okay, so teach what you prepared to teach."
Oh, geez.
I'm like, And so I just taught Mike Boyle, like joint by joint theory. I'm like, and this is what I know. And then the lady teaching it, her name is Geraldine Cooper Smith, who ended up being one of my awesome mentors. She's like, "Oh my God, you know Mike Boyle? He's my best friend." I'm like, and so like we like hugged.
That's great.
And she was like, "I love you now." But she was like of like that absolutely. So Equinox is like a beautiful fitness chain. Their personal trainers may or may not be great, but they're about business, right?
Sure.
She's about education, and she's a strength coach, and she's like, I want everyone to be great. So she started the educational system, and she's like, "You're amazing. You're teaching for us, and like, here's the West Coast." So I was like education coordinator for the West Coast. I basically designed, like, we taught all the education for the West Coast, and eventually started. We wrote the curriculum together. So there's like 6 of us in the nation that wrote the curriculum for the nation. So we had to fly around and teach all these personal trainers at Equinox. Oh, cool. So like from the ground up. So we had like tier 1, 2, 3, 4, or X or whatever. But the education, like we basically designed what buckets they needed to fill, and then as they filled those buckets, they got paid more.
I think that's amazing.
It
takes a lot probably to organize that, outline that. I've taught a few college courses and written some curriculum, but it's like, this is medical terminology, this is Pullman, whatever that, it's very specific. But in your case, I feel like, how deep do you want to go? It's all encompassing, right? So how did you kind of tier that out? I think that's interesting.
Well, Geraldine did a great job, like initially, and then we started to revise it a little bit. We had a personal training course, like we used the NSCA curriculum a lot too, but it's basically like anatomy and basic physiology, like how to not kill someone, go. And then we did like special populations and some like, was it nutritional stuff? But it was like we had like a detailed sciences, so that we went deeper into like biomechanics and things like that. And then if someone was hurt, like any kind of like knee injury, pregnancy, diabetes, so you had like that bucket. And then Tier X was again like more like all encompassing, where we did like sleep, like nutrition, like we had like all these like outside physiologists come in, and like Nick Winkleman came and like would give these lectures to like everyone. So we kind of like it tiered up from there. But it's just amazing when those trainers come in. Like a lot of people are just like, "Oh, like I'm cute, so I want to be a trainer."
Right.
And one girl once is like, "It's amazing because like this is a profession, but I just literally read like Shape magazine and like tell my clients what to do from there. I'm like, I get paid for it." I'm like,
"Dude, that's the problem."
That's awesome. One type of trainer.
See, that's the problem.
One type.
But under the category of personal trainer, right? Or
yeah.
And but what was that?
Like for me, like I was having like a heart attack because I was used to like Mike Boyle and Exos and Todd's.
Oh man,
and to like the shit show that was like on the floor, like I had to walk, like put my head down, like, okay, is this really happening? So I like took it as like my guts, like, okay, we're freaking going, guys. This is quality.
My impression would be that some people were hired based on maybe looks or personality versus educational background or strength of experience.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Especially the location. You were in Newport and Irvine,
And
right?
West Hollywood.
And West Hollywood.
That's
so
where my initial.
very heavy, looks
Yes.
influenced, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the look.
Like the day after like the Grammys where like nobody was there because like everyone like went out the night before, like, and then like they had cameras. It's totally a side note, but they like would film like entourage there, and so everyone was like SAG. So like the second the cameras walked in, like everyone would scatter because like I can't be on camera because I'm SAG. I'm gonna violate. Oh my god.
You're like, it's not that serious.
It's not that, you guys, it's fine. But like to see, so then like Wes Pedersen is another. He was kind of like my affiliate. Like he got, he jumped on with me to run the West Coast. And it was like the Wild West.
I bet.
Like FMS, like what's that? And I like had a class like, what does your quad do? Like
Oh my God.
you're getting paid 100%. I like know what it does. Well, we kind of.
What were the hours for each of those buckets to tier up? Like 40 hours, 100 hours of training? Like what was the, was it that way or was it exam based?
I don't know. It was like hours of training. So it was like, what was like 6 weeks of classes, like 2 hours, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever that adds up to.
So if you're serious, you really want to tier up.
Yeah.
If you're not serious, you're just like, I'm here, I'm working. Yeah.
Yeah. And it showed because people won't get, the clients wouldn't stick.
Sure.
Like they'd have clients for a bit or like they'd fall apart or like they'd hurt somebody and then it would, but to see it change, at first it was like absolutely like crazy, but to see like the cultures change and then have kids come up to you like years later, like, I remember what you said in class that day, like that totally changed my life. And I'm like,
finally.
Yeah.
And
awesome. The culture did change. Like, I mean, I was there long enough to like watch it go from just like chaos to like at least the attempt to be really meaningful. Like the trainers were really trying and really putting.
That takes a lot. It's like stopping a train. It takes a long time to stop that momentum, and even longer to go from stop to like, changing the direction. Yeah.
But that was so rewarding. I mean, that was so much fun, like teaching and like just seeing like I had to go like Canada and like all over the U.S. and Miami. I spent like 2 weeks in Miami once for Equinox. I was like,
that's cool.
I'll do that again.
Like, all right.
That's funny.
But yeah, that was rewarding as heck. And then Geraldine, like after she left, she got recruited to go to Nike. So she's like fitness director of Nike. So she flew all her Equinox peeps to Nike campus for a week of just like, come play at Nike. And it was different to see like Equinox, like our training system, which I'm kind of fine with, was like you'd walk in and be like, oh, you shouldn't be walking. Like, oh, I don't know about that knee. Like, why don't you sit down until you like correct your movement? And there's Nike when they're like, yeah, everyone's an athlete. Like, we're all doing burpees. You know what I mean?
Got you. So totally different.
Totally. I mean,
culture's different.
Yeah, they will like drive you off a cliff, but you're an athlete and you be trying, like, you're like, Graham, like, okay, we got this.
Just do it.
And
Just
Equinox,
do it.
Yeah. And then Equinox, by the time you're like cheer for, you're like, you shouldn't even be breathing.
Yeah.
You move so bad.
What are you even doing here?
Yeah.
You're terrible.
Like, that will be like $48,000 and you might fix it. So.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny to like mix those cultures.
Sure.
So she mixed all her like smarty pants, like snobs with these like crazy fit Nike kids.
Oh, that's fun.
And it was kind of cool, like War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
But it like, I was like, what a good idea. Because then she's like, everyone's like, we're going to have a little fun.
For sure.
And they're going to learn a little something. And like, I was like, oh, yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've never been there. It's on my list of my good friend's brother-in-law works there. He's always like, come down next time you're up. And I'm like, I'm never in the area, but I want to make a trip.
Yeah,
Let's do a podcast from there. Road trip.
Man, that might not be a bad idea. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
The Ducks game, right? Aren't the Ducks right there? Oregon Ducks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have a patient on the Ducks somewhere.
Yeah, we could work that out. Yeah.
I need to ask Justin if he can hook us up with
Yeah,
a little something,
Yeah.
Give us a corner where we can go live. Yeah. We just need the Wi-Fi password to the stadium. That's it.
From Starbucks. Corner, campus Starbucks.
Man. Well, we could keep talking for a long time. Do you have any, last questions or do you have anything you want to
One last story
about?
that I'm kind of proud of with Kori that we got to do, which was kind of fun. During the Mamba era of soccer, that's what Kobe started, the Mamba. Well, it got to a certain phase where the older girls were getting bigger, stronger. We were going into some college showcase type stuff.
Sweet.
So he came to me and said, I want to start a strength and conditioning program for Mamba. Can you do it? And I said, yes.
He being Kobe.
Kobe, yes. I said, yes, absolutely, we'll do that. But I said, I want to bring on somebody that's, got the background that you would want and the quality and everything that would represent Mamba. And I asked Kori, and she thought about it for a little while.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
Kobe. How do you spell Kobe?
So, yeah, so.
And what age demographic of girls was that?
We
Was
were,
that young or like
we
into
were,
college?
Were we primarily doing the youngers, or were we doing the olders too?
Because like Bella was like 18.
Yeah, I was gonna say
yeah.
it was all they combined
Mm-hmm.
kind of, they brought the youngers with the olders. It was kind of this culture. They wanted to have this academy eventually and actually just really do big things with it. That was the plan. And so it was kind of building a culture from the youngers to the olders, so the youngers learn from the olders.
Gotcha. Yeah.
This is kind of how they do it in other countries. And our coach Omar, he was really big into that background of like I think it was Brazilian style soccer, and they just do it a little
Big
different.
brother, little brother, teach it down, teach it up.
So we were working with the whole range of kids, and so we would sit down and
That must have been so fun.
it was a lot of fun because it was programming, and we got to sit down and program, which was a lot of fun. And we'd have a lot of fun, just texting back and forth. Okay, let's do this, and and we'd agree or disagree, and then we'd come to a comment, and so we had a lot of fun. But one of the things we learned working together on that was like the injury and blurring the lines a little.
Yeah.
So it really tested us.
I see.
On where, like, staying in your lane, like we were talking about, because sometimes I wouldn't be able to be there, and somebody would have a knee injury or something or a strain, and Kori would diagnose it or under my and I'd be like,
let me
Kori,
adjust this.
you can't be
Dr.
doing that.
Glass told me, he told me it's broken.
And then she'd be like, I'm well within my rights to do this, and this, and it was good, and it was good to learn from, what your scope is, what my scope is, and so I appreciate that we had this.
It's almost like a dance, right? Like
well, we also I think we're really close too, like almost like brother and sister. We're like, we'd be like, F you. Like, you probably wouldn't do that with other people, but we do it with love, like absolutely, like
it was respect and trying to get the best out of each other to give the best product, right? And we were proud in the Mamba strength and conditioning program, and we wanted it just as bad because we were a reflection on what we were wanting to produce, but we wanted the kids to produce and ultimately be a reflection on the Mamba brand and Kobe, right? Dude. So it was fun, and to have Kobe give us feedback, man, I was out there at practice. These girls
saw them doing it.
Like, it was rewarding. It was cool.
That's great.
That's cool.
So it was a fun thing. Unfortunately, did not last.
Plus, I will also say on this,
some of the girls still reach out to me. Like, they still come into Prevail once in a while.
I recently, Bella was one of them. I recently, Kori told me to call you. I got that call.
Those relationships are awesome because for us, I feel like 5 years goes like that. But someone goes from 8th grade into college, or from college, now they're working. And it's like, I really, really appreciate those younger athletes that I used to know or do know now as they progress. And it's like, it's almost like a prideful moment, even if you just have just a little bit to do with it. It's like, I want to see you succeed, you know?
100%.
So that's super cool.
Like, my whole career, I think I've leaned on Dr. Glass, like, the whole time. I mean, like, he's made me look so good. And we've, like, learned so much from you, and, like, we've, like, butted heads and cried, but, like just have the comfort of you in my circle is amazing.
It's been nice both ways.
It takes a team, right? And like that's what it's about.
Well, very rarely do you find like the 20%, right? And when you do, you stick together over all these years. 2005, going on almost 20 years. Holy crap! When we say it that way,
I'm only 28.
Right? I know. How's that possible? So,
what do they say? Prodigy.
Exactly. So but you find your people, right? You find your tribe, and you stick with it. And
well, I think like attracts like, and like-minded people attract like-minded people, and it's I think it's hard when you're trying to be great at what you do in your profession. It's hard to find other people that have that same drive to be great, because it takes extra. And also, I'll say it's hard to find somebody with your D designation, somebody above and beyond, who isn't just also trying to be great, but isn't selfish and is down to pause on this hike to greatness and be like, hey, let me help you, let me teach you, or why don't I rest with you so we can go up together? Sometimes greatness comes with some selfishness, and so it's hard to find a team of people. And that's why I appreciate you, and I'm glad that we got to
Thank
meet.
you so much.
Well, that's why I was really stoked that she was wanting to do this, and like I told you from a while ago, I was hoping to get her on, and I just think networking for you two, being down here also, and I just think, again, I hope it's a no-brainer for you to reach out to her, knowing our relationship.
Absolutely.
So, and vice versa. So.
No, it's a beautiful thing. I think it's hard to find, people who are on kind of the same page and have the same goals. And, you're like my brother. And so if you're like Kori's A quality, like that's all I need to hear, And
now you have a new sister.
well, there you go.
Great.
You're probably already cooler.
Wow.
I'm going to get myself in trouble.
There you go.
It's just because we had Thanksgiving last week and it was a little bit no, I'm just kidding. I really appreciate you coming down. I know it was a bit of a drive, Kori.
No,
and one last thing.
Yeah, please.
I just looked over at your shirt. Why don't you talk about Prevail real quick? Because you should be proud of Prevail and what you guys are doing. Because after the Equinox thing, it turned, you kind of, went on because you had been doing the corporate thing for a while and then moved into her own thing. So.
Yeah, so two of my coaches, when I was a T-Rex manager at Equinox, they decided to leave Equinox and start Prevail. They were amazing movement scientists and also two of the highest producers in the company.
Wow.
So them moving, I was dying because there goes my bonus. Good luck. But I loved them and supported them. And then they asked me to come back and join them. So I was like, I don't know. And my husband's like, yes. He's like, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
I trust those two guys.
Join the team. Yeah.
He's like, as long as you're with them, you're going to be like, if you in business long, he's like, no.
Yeah.
And so I finally bought in. And then during COVID, Equinox started was having some trouble. So we pulled in, I think that are some of the best coaches in the industry from Equinox. They're T-Rex, top of the line. We all are like-minded. Now we all co-own it. So everyone bought in a little bit.
That's great.
So we're all co-owners. They are degrees in the field. They're movement scientists. Same thing. We disagree, but we totally agree. If we all a little bit different. So if I'm working on a client and one of the coaches is like, hey Kori, look at that toe. Did you see that toe? Oh wow, thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate you looking over here. Or if you're working out, you have 6 eyes on you, so you're screwed because you can't make a mistake. You know. And it's just the coolest team. We're a family. We are like-minded. We are great coaches. I'm absolutely so proud of that too because
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
What would your client base be? What would your niche be? With as far as Prevail goes, who's Prevail trying to kind of market to? Or
anyone. We high school collegiate athletes would be our way that we go because we're all ex-athletes, we're all strength coaches, so we're really in that groove.
Yeah.
We also invite, of course, general fitness. If you have a goal, I have a lot of older clients that are, avid skiers and downhill. They're there for a reason. We're really strength coaches at heart. We're going to get you to a performance goal, but of course, anyone is invited in. I have some swimmers now. I have a swimmer at USC. I have a swimmer at Michigan. Super proud of that.
Yeah.
Shayna worked with us. She's in Nashville right now. So all these colleges, they're and equestrian at Rochester just got
That's
so
exciting.
I have really cool young athletes that are going places and getting signed. Lacrosse girl at Brown right now. And I was thinking from Todd, we used to get to work with these girls. That's cool. Then looking this is my thing. We've all done this. It's my team. So it's really. I want to cry thinking about it.
The legacy is starting. Or has started. That's amazing. Cool.
And for your family, everyone, all of our clients are we'll all give each other shit, and we're all there. Everyone's talking and hanging out with this collective moving group. It's not just my client, your client. Oh, your hour's up. It's really, and you trust all the coaches. It's cool.
That's unique. It's a unique situation. It's hard to find people like that and have, and then to build a business, all be on the same page. That's a unique situation. That's really sounds like you're blessed in that way.
I'm so blessed. I'm so I woke up, even driving up there, if I'm tired at night, watching myself drive away or just being there. And the drive, the commute, you drive for an hour. And Equinox, you're when am I down? This is so exhausting.
Sure.
But there, it's fine.
She's in Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach,
Next time I'm going through there and have some downtime, I'd love to come by and say hello.
It's
and
not too far off right off the freeway. Just turn left instead of right towards mine. So.
Yeah, but you're actually close.
That's great.
So
that's wonderful. I used to drive by Dustin's office multiple times a week and not
stop
to say
hi. Never.
Just
I'd drive by. I'd be like, oh, that's Dustin's exit. Yeah. Okay, I could stop and see my good friend, but I'm just gonna think about him.
And then he would call and let me know after he was home already. Oh yeah, I was just up there. Oh,
He was
good.
like,
You know what?
stop
I'll
it.
just take the toll road instead of going by and seeing my
Sure.
friend, you know? Save those 19 minutes.
Yep.
I had like $250 a month. You're
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't worry.
Jeez. Speaking of, I need to hit that 1-800 toll roads and take care of some.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah.
That's it's ticking.
Sneaks up on you.
It's
Yeah.
ticking.
They're like, we'll give you 5 days. You're like, that's plenty of time. You're like, was that 9 days ago? Sweet.
Yes, you're like, oh, it just
Yeah.
turned from like $2.50 like 45.
Yeah, that escalation is crazy. It should be like $50 to $60 to they go like 50 to 100 and to 250. Like it's yeah.
But
it's
you can
aggressive.
negotiate. I've negotiated before.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah,
I need to call them then.
just like your mother's dying. My mother died, so you can just be
Yeah.
like, oh, Corey's mom died.
No, I can't do that.
But he would appreciate
But I
it.
might just try to charm them though.
But
I
he's
might
like, I
just be
got
like,
Go
please.
that route. Don't throw
Yeah.
any of that, Corey.
Like I haven't taken my wife out to dinner in a long time, and this money could go towards that.
Yeah, there you
We're
go.
about to get divorced. You're gonna save a
Yeah.
marriage.
Please.
The dark.
Please, I'll do anything to save a ticket. So
Oh, yeah.
don't give me ideas. I'd love to do this again soon, maybe in a few months, or
Yeah.
you know, at a nice timeline when there's more stuff to do. I look forward to, you know, a few months from now, where this time of night it's not pitch dark outside. I'm still getting used to the. You're probably training late and working late, I imagine. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
I like it when it's 9 p.m. and it's light out still. But
Yeah, me too.
you know, well, any last few things today. I'm gonna have to go back and listen. I think 2 or 3 times I was like, that is a great point. So I'm gonna have to, you know, gem those out,
Oh, cool.
find some little moments in there. But
sure.
yeah, well, I thank you for coming on and taking the time and driving down. Dustin, same with you.
Thank you.
This is a Second Opinion Sports Medicine podcast, and we'll be back next week with another episode. And we appreciate you guys listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend. We appreciate that. We're trying to increase our following, and we'll be back with hopefully some more interesting conversations in the very near future. But you guys drive safe. I appreciate you once again. To our listeners, thank you. Be safe. Have a great week, and we will be back in a few days.
Sounds good.
Good night.